Is it live?
Oh, yeah.
Sounds good. Let's start.
Go ahead.
All right, people. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Let Your Words Count. I am Gary Gant, and I'm sitting here with Ethan Merriweather.
Yes, sir.
And we are going to, our format, we've been looking at a variety of different words we focus on, used in everyday language, sometimes misunderstood, misapplied, or the result of various words based on how we understand it. So we like to dive in, pick a word, dive in and see what we can uncover about it or how we can help improve everybody's understanding of it. So today's word is insecurity. Basic definition we have is essentially not safe or not certain. And it kind of talks to being uncertain, anxious, or lacking confidence in oneself. And we talked before in other podcasts about how insecurity can look when it pops up, when it rears its ugly head, and what some of the effects are of that. So I'll let Ethan jump in with some of the history on the word, and then from there we'll go into more discussion. So you want to take it, E?
Yeah. Well, you kind of touched on it already about the history or the etymology of the word.
Mm-hmm.
And what we was looking up, the etymology of the word, Latin is insecurus, which you can break it down to be not safe. The N, of course, the prefix would be for not, and secure itself would be for safe. When you think about it, it's kind of like directing the word to more of an emotional impact or whatnot.
Yes.
When you think about insecurities, let's take it a little bit further from etymology, is what do we do with it today? What does it look like today? And how you can say how we look at it as a negative, because it is a negative in some regard. When I think about that insecurity, we always thinking about going back to the emotional side of someone feeling insecure about a choice to be made, or someone's relationship with a girlfriend or boyfriend, even in a marriage or whatnot. Someone is insecure about where they stand in relationships. Some people are insecure about where they stand at their job. A lot of people are insecure about many, many things. The negative side is what do people do in the process of that insecurity? You know what I'm saying? It's very dangerous where people can become some sort of monster in my mind. And I could be wrong with it, but I've dealt with insecurity. I think we all, let's be honest, I think we all suffer insecurities in some capacity. It's the great point of that uncertainty is, what do you do with it? And how do I grow out of that, that uncertainty, You can go ahead, G. I'm still thinking about that a little bit.
No, you good. So, and I think you brought up an excellent point about it, because like you said, insecurities are something that we all have in some way, shape, or form at some point in time throughout our lives. Being human, you will experience insecurity at some point, but it matters what that insecurity does to you, how you respond to it. On one hand, I think you have where somebody can process insecurity and it becomes more of a self-destructive thing, right? It results in extreme fear, extreme jealousy, comparison. And I think that because of insecurity, some of the more extreme forms of it can manifest as like depression in some way, right? So a person can start to, and again, a few different ways you can process it, right? But I think if you have insecurities and you start to internalize and believe them and you succumb to that, the outcome of that, I think, is negative to the self. Again, fear, jealousy, mistrust, doubt, depression, and so on and so forth, right? Then you have somebody who may feel that insecurity and chooses to try to fight against it. There is a way to have insecurity, and in the processing of it, still have an opportunity to grow and mature from that experience and from that emotion, that feeling, right? There is a way to process it and come out of it with something positive, but it takes effort. And I think that effort has to start with acknowledging that the insecurity is there
100%.
so you can address it. If you're not honest enough to say, I feel I have to define my movement as being supreme versus being excellent, right? Even in the subtle nuances of one word is in comparison to everything else. One just speaks to within your own self, you're excellent, you're great, right? It doesn't have to be where in order for me to address my self-doubts, my self-negativity, if it manifests as I have to put somebody else down in order to make myself feel better, then that's when it starts to become harmful for other people. That insecurity is not just harming you anymore. You've allowed that to come externally out of you, and you're starting to now project the effects of your insecurity in other people, and starts to do harm to other people. So I think that it's you have to be very mindful of, again, acknowledging first insecurity is there and acting in a way to prevent negative outcomes first to you, first to yourself, but then to make sure that once you recognize that it's there, take precautions to make sure that your insecurities don't get projected onto somebody else or cause harm to other people around you because you're not feeling secure about yourself. So,
Man, that's very good. I wrote down a couple of points that you made. I thought it was great. You mentioned fear, number one. Another, a couple other words was jealousy, comparison, and depression.
yes.
It's amazing that we can take such a word like insecure, and you can stumble down a path to so many detrimental
Absolutely.
activities in our thought processes, in our mind, you know. And I love the fact that you also brought up, how can I explain it? You brought up that in order for the projection of one's insecurity, in order for them to feel secure, that means that they have to project a certain mindset or behavior on someone else, basically tear someone else down so they can feel a lot better. When you think about that, that's a monster mentality, right?
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So when I think about insecurity, and like you said, how can we build up and acknowledge? And that's another word that you said, and it was in the definition. In when you look at it from a negative standpoint, how can one? We have to learn. Not how can one? That's not the right question. The action should be acknowledging that you are insecure, because when you acknowledge that you're insecure, that means that you took note, and now you have to do something about it. A lot of times when you acknowledge something, it's incumbent for us to take measurements and steps in order to resolve.
I love it.
Why, or what the purpose, or what's driving the insecurity to begin with.
Absolutely.
You know.
Absolutely.
And I love that. And once again, going back to, I think we all suffer some types of, I know I have. I mean, I can tell you so many experiences of my insecurities when it comes to playing sports, when it comes to my music that I try to do and whatnot, especially comparison, going back to the word comparison. Our insecurities really branch out at times, and I'm just saying this from my opinion, is based off of us comparing to what we have deemed outside of us, to what we feel that we cannot accomplish or achieve. Did that make sense?
Say it one more time.
So a lot of times I believe our insecurities or whatnot could come when we start to compare ourselves outside of us to something that we would like to achieve, but we feel that we don't have the capacity to do it.
Got you.
Which is, to me, I think you're lying to yourself. See, insecurity in my mind is a lie that we have believed in. You know what I'm saying? We have invested so much. And this is the tricky part about insecurity. And that's the reason why the step to acknowledge that you're insecure about something helps resolve the situation so you can put stuff in place. Sometimes insecurity is like that silent assassin that you don't really know that it's there.
Definitely.
And is living in a place where is living in a place within you that is, I'm trying to get it out of my head.
I understand. I understand.
That it shouldn't be there.
Right.
It ends up, you start to believe in your insecurity. Did that make sense?
It does. It does.
Yeah.
Yep. So I think that you brought some real good points there. The comparison part. Let me take a step back, because I think first, like you said, we're okay. Insecurity is there. I'm feeling it. And I think this is, in the back of my mind, this is part of what's wrong with the celebrity idolization that we have that's frequent today. It's mainstream, right? We follow the lives and the stories of celebrities, and we sit there and watch everything they do. We consume like locusts, the paparazzi pictures, media, videos of everything going on with their lives, their reality shows and everything else, whatever. But we sit there and watch everything they have going on, and the entire time we're watching it, we're not just watching it, we're not just being entertained, we're comparing.
Yes.
We're looking at what they have, what they do, what they're able to do, and we're watching that the whole time, thinking of how these are things we're not able to do. Right? So holding on to these kind of insecurities with this, I'm looking at somebody else, and the time that I should be focusing on trying to find out what I am good in to address that insecurity. What can I do well? What is it that I should be doing? Instead of spending so much time watching somebody else do something that's going to distract me, because then I start thinking, well, my goal should be what this person is doing. So as I'm watching them, not having any goal or direction of my own, I'm kind of wading further and further into this depression or this competition mindset that starts to work against me, right? Instead of taking that time to figure out what should I be doing. And I'm definitely saying that from experience for me. One of the most liberating experiences for me, and a part of a journey out of insecurity for myself, was when I had to realize that I understood what I was supposed to be doing. And once I realized that, I'm not worried about competing with anybody else that has a goal or an aspiration to do the same thing. Welcome, join, do your part for sure, throw whatever your contribution is to the mix, because I know what I have to do. So I don't perceive anybody else's work in that space or work alongside me or work against me as a threat, because I know what I have to do, and I know that I can do what I have to do. So having that understanding and determining for yourself, what should I be doing? It took away from me an opportunity for insecurity to make me depressed about that particular topic, or to let me get distracted or programmed by someone else for what I should be doing, once I took it upon myself to say, I know what I should be doing, and I don't have to compete. I'm not looking to compare myself to somebody else, because what I'm doing is what I'm doing. Right?
That's awesome. That's awesome. No, man, I think you hit the nail on the head. I was thinking, while you were trying to share this with the audience, I was thinking about that word comparison again. Right. Like you were bringing up comparison. Right. It's comparison is the thieves of what? Joy. Or whatnot. I love drilling things down to a point where you can get to the foundation and understand the origin of stuff, of things. And I think that's the reason why we wanted to start this program, Let Your Words Count. And so the words we use, or the words that impact us daily, do we really understand the significance behind them? So that, defining it, understanding the meaning, let's grab it, let's hold on to it, let's smell it, let's taste it.
For
You know
sure,
what I'm saying?
for
So we
sure.
can understand that these things really count,
Right.
right? And it
Right.
really does something to us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you talk about this comparison, I started thinking like, okay, when is comparison safe?
Mm.
Okay.
Hmm.
And I was thinking like the programs you were using as an example,
Right.
there is a safe mode, a safe place
Okay.
for comparing.
Okay.
But it becomes detrimental and harmful when that comparison start to fester into something like depression.
Sure.
So it's okay to compare or reference. So if your comparison is a motivation to reference or to uh, use it for identification or use it and you can't hardly even use that word nowadays.
Yep.
For
Yep.
some you know what I mean, gotta be that's going to be another word we
Yes,
use.
definitely. Definitely.
But when you use comparison as a way to measure to improve,
Sure.
there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're using comparison as a means for jealousy or because you are lacking something in a negative way, it can really go down a bad path.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Definitely.
And that's the crazy part about words that we use. How are we utilizing those words? You know what I'm saying?
Love it.
What is your understanding of that words? What is your intent of that word? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So if I tell somebody you're being insecure right now,
Right.
that person probably don't realize that they're being
For sure.
insecure.
For
You
sure.
know what I'm saying?
Definitely.
Because they never really personally took a step back and been able to see what they look like.
Mm.
I know plenty of people that are insecure. You know why I know?
Mm-hmm.
Because they were doing the same thing that I was doing when I was
Got
insecure.
you.
You see what I'm saying?
Facts.
But you have to, I think you have to be with, use wisdom in order to engage that person that is insecure and be wise enough to ask them the right questions so it can be
That's the key.
revealed to them
That's the
that
key.
they're being insecure in something.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
It does. It
Yeah.
does. And I think that's part of the key too. You said a couple of very good words in what you were saying, right? You mentioned the word measure, and you said wisdom. We should use wisdom in our if we're going to compare.
Yeah.
If there's going to be any comparison
Yes.
whatsoever, to temper that comparison with wisdom, because when you again between that word wisdom and measure, when I'm looking at measuring something, right? To say I'm measuring something implies there's a place where I start the measurement and where I end the measurement.
Mm-hmm.
If I try to compare, and again, going back to our roots, right? If I have an aspiration of being like some figure, whoever it is, and I look at them at the end of their journey
Mm-hmm.
and try to compare their end state to where I am right now, I'm doing myself a disservice because I've neglected the measure of
Very
where
good.
they started and what it took for them to get from where they started to where I see them right now. If I approach that comparison without wisdom and say, I'm looking at you where you are right now, comparing that to where I am right now, and maybe I'm not recognizing that I'm where you were at the start of your journey. Looking at where you are now doesn't mean I can't get there. It just means, like you said, asking those questions. What did you do to get from where you were in my position today versus where I see you right now? What were the steps that you took to get from that place to where you've reached right now? So I can, if I do agree or think that you're something to compare myself to, that's usually because you're maybe doing something better or something of note, something either I want to emulate or don't want to. And if it's something that you want to emulate, if I'm looking at that person and comparing without wisdom, I can get depressed because I'm like, okay, I'm over here at level 1, you're at level 30. And if I just end sentence right there and don't factor in wisdom, that's depressing because I want to be at 30 with you, but I'm stuck back here at 1 and I don't see the path of how to get to that point. So wisdom, ask the questions. How did you get from level 1 to
Yes.
level 30? What were the
Beautiful.
steps you took? What were the things you had to do? What disciplines, whatever else, going back to last week's word, right? And in order to get from level 1 to level 30, so I can match those steps, and then in that regard, then that comparison becomes valuable to me, because I'm not just looking at your end state. I'm looking at the measure. I'm looking at the steps that were taken in between. So then I can also have a blueprint for how to get to that same point.
Man, that's
That makes
awesome,
sense.
man. Yeah, oh yeah, man, that's awesome. I love. See, I didn't even think about that when it comes to measure. You actually took it to another level. That the process is everything, right?
Absolutely.
The 1 to 30. There's many shades of gray.
Sure. Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So, you know, and the reason why I say that is because that there's a process.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I think what we fail to realize sometimes, and to me, is almost by design for insecurity to be in the world. And the reason why I say that is because depression makes someone rich. Insecurity makes people rich.
Absolutely. Oh, yes, definitely, bro. They hit hard. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And if we don't take note that the influences that causes you to stay in this insecure or depressive state, they are winning. You know, those systems
Beautiful.
that allow us to be comfortable in being insecure.
Wow.
You see, they are winning with
Wow.
that with that tactic.
That's big, bro.
Yeah.
That's huge. Yeah.
And you said something earlier that resonated with me big time, was about, I don't know if you said the word choice, but it made me think about choice. It's like I'm choosing moving forward not to be this way. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
Like
right.
I will not, you didn't say that for word, but that's kind of what I caught.
Gotcha.
Was, you know, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth,
You
but
good. It
that
fits.
that really helped me, like, really understand more and more that it's really a choice
Absolutely.
to be. What is the questions that do I know that, how can I say it? Do I realize that I don't have to stay here?
Fascinating.
You know what I'm saying?
Definitely.
Have I thought about this long enough? About, you said it, about the steps to get out of this mode.
Sure.
Do I even know
Right.
that there is an ability and an opportunity for me to no longer to be in this status?
Wow.
You know, it's just something that I've just been thinking about,
That's
man.
big. That's big, bro.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yep. So you hit on, man, insecurity is very, very profitable
Ooh.
to the person that recognizes that it's there and recognizes an opportunity to exploit somebody else. Right? And I can't help but think of an example we hear about the super consumer culture, right? And how someone who doesn't have a lot of money will take resources that should be devoted to other things and instead spends those resources on trying to put on an image. So when they compare themselves to this other person, they try to make themselves look like something that they're not, and like they have resources that they don't. So a person that preys on those insecurities can make a lot of money from the people that have those insecurities, and the people that have the insecurities divert resources that they should be using to get out of their situation into instead trying to look like they're out of that situation before they are, right? So there's always that aspect of somebody comes in and you're the predator or you're the prey. And again, I think this comes back to, we need to kind of start with our own, you mentioned the word identification. We need to identify ourselves, know what our identity is about. Like we talked about this on the Mind Forge podcast before, the phrase toxic masculinity.
Yes.
I don't like that phrase.
Yes.
And I don't like that phrase because it's a misdiagnosis, right? Masculinity isn't the issue. No more than femininity is the issue. That's not the problem. Identifying those things as toxic for what they are, it's not an accurate assessment of what's going on. You have people who are so insecure, maybe, in their masculinity,
Yes.
that in their attempt to prove to themselves and prove to everyone else that they're masculine, they become toxic. Their insecurity makes them so fearful, so uneasy about how they feel in their own skin, that they go and start projecting these things and projecting their fears and insecurities in a way to try to cover it up and mask it. So it becomes toxic in the way that it's applied. But that's because, you know, you have a person that's looking at the surfer bro as masculine. So I'm going to go out of my way to be extra loud and go and hit the gym every single day, 30, you know, whatever, just to become this image of what I think masculinity is, instead of saying, I know what it is. I know what I am. Because in my mind, it just, again, to flip toxic masculinity, I know I'm masculine in my mind. I'm not looking at, I have to go and compare, am I more masculine or less masculine this person? I am. When I think about masculinity in my mind, I'm not really thinking about a picture or an image of somebody else. I'm like, whatever I'm doing is going to be that, period.
Yeah.
I'm not comparing to somebody else. I'm not going to allow myself to feel insecure in my masculinity. Whatever I'm doing is going to be it, period. That's me. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, without having an insecurity about that, I'm not trying to project something that I'm not. I'm not willing to hurt or be inconsiderate of somebody else in my attempt to prove that I'm something that I'm not. You know what I mean? And that comes back to, again, that resource discussion. I'm not wasting resources trying to prove that I'm something that I'm not. I'm secure enough in what I identify myself as, that's the definition of what I am, period. And, you know, if somebody else feels the need to put that in a certain category or bucket, do your thing. But that by itself is not toxic. It's when you pair that desire to be something with somebody who's insecure about not having it, it becomes toxic. I can never see a situation where that paradigm, that, you know, that situation will not become toxic, because a person is insecure, wants to be something that they're not, and they're insecure about it. So their approach, their pursuit of getting to that thing is going to be toxic most times. If a person doesn't process it and realize it and acknowledge it and choose to figure out a positive way out of that. You know what I mean? I've said too much. Go ahead.
No, you didn't, man. I think you hit the nail right on the head with that, man. And I think that
let me give you closing remarks too, bro.
Yeah, that's fine. I was thinking how important for us to, if what's what's the beautiful part about insecurity, that there's an antonym.
I love it. I love it. It's a solution.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
There's an antonym to that word.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? We have to understand that with a person that has, or people, or a mindset, I think I like that better. A mindset with insecurity, it causes so much energy to be taken from the room. A person that's insecure can remove the energy and the light from a room.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? It really does.
Wow.
And the reason why that's the case is because we experience that all the time. When a person, because it's self-serving. If you think about insecurity, it's self-serving, and it's really nothing. That person has to come to it. It really have to be a supernatural event, a revelation to that individual to know that that person is suffering from a dose of insecurity.
Sure.
You know, fatigue. I got a lack of word. I couldn't even think of nothing right.
Right.
But you know, and this is the thing. I'm gonna take a step back and I'm gonna end with this. I think another part was, on a closing note, one thing that I want to say is the good part about insecurity is that once it's recognized, you can do something about it.
Beautiful.
That's the part. It's about acknowledging that there's an issue and set goals in place so it can be dissolved.
Definitely.
Because no one wants to walk around. You can't. Well, can't is an absolute. I don't want to use that word. I think most of us can agree that we don't walk in a room and say, "I'm insecure."
We don't know we do, but some of our actions do. Absolutely. Yes.
Yes, we don't know, but
For
our
sure.
actions do.
For
And,
sure.
And the thing is I hate to say it, man. And if anybody that's watching, if you disagree or want to leave a comment, please leave a comment.
Absolutely.
Because your comments are going to help me
Challenge
kind of
us.
challenge us and
That's right.
really think about this a little bit more.
Absolutely.
We want to bring up words that are impactful and that can really help build people up. We know that insecurity is something that we face daily,
For sure.
right? Because it's a part of our makeup. It is in this flesh suit of ours.
Right.
It's how we handle it when it arrives, right?
Definitely.
And just a keynote and a closing point is, unless G have one more thing or anything like that.
All yours, brother.
If you suffer with insecurity, I would challenge you to start slowing down and consider what is the benefit of that insecurity. Are you going to nurture that insecurity like a baby and let it grow into and mature into something worse? Or do you want to handle that insecurity in such a way where you can help others recognize their shortcomings because of insecurity?
Wow.
The challenge is for all of us to recognize, take note of that, acknowledge, and allow it to be moved far from us. And like G said earlier, and we talked about earlier, use wisdom. Use wisdom. If you know how it looks, find out. If you don't know how it looks, let's try to figure out how it looks so we can do something about it. So that's our word for today. This is Ethan Merriweather with Gary Gant. This is Let Your Words Count, and I hope you enjoy. God bless you, and bye.
Take it easy. That's a wrap.